from the main stage. And I want to give an update as the person who's been liaising with the Vice President's team and with them and with DNC leadership. I haven't gotten the call yet. I've been waiting for the call. We're waiting to hear from you. We're waiting to hear from the Democratic Party about whether or not there is a place for Palestinian Americans on the stage of the Democratic National Convention. I sure hope that there is. And I will be completely transparent with members of the press, and I'm so grateful to members of the press for being here. I hope you leave here and ask the campaign and ask the Vice President's team, will there be a Palestinian American speaker from the main stage? Because what we've done is we have, as the Uncommitted National Movement, presented a whole long list of names. They include the names of Palestinian American elected officials who you'll hear from today. And I don't know what the issue is on the inside, what's holding this up, but let me just be clear. If the issue is that there isn't room for Palestinian Americans in the Democratic Party, then we've got a problem. And it might be indicative of a deeper structural problem of anti-Palestinian racism, anti-Arab racism, and Islamophobia in our country. Because let me tell you, there is not a Palestinian that I know who hasn't said before that they need bombs to stop. There's not a Palestinian that I know that doesn't believe that we've got to stop sending weapons to kill civilians. So if the fear is that that's something that will be said from the stage, then talk to us about it. We're very reasonable people. We just don't want our baby to continue being killed using our own country's bombs. We're very reasonable. We know just how dangerous what's around the corner is. We know how dangerous Donald Trump is. We know how dangerous his agenda will be, how destructive his ideas are, including as it relates to the precious people we love in Gaza. We know his idea to kill people faster. We oppose him. We're going to continue rejecting him. But we also know that the party leadership right now is failing to update the policy in a manner that aligns with what the majority of the Democratic voters want. And we're here representing, at least as an uncommitted delegate, I'm representing the over 101,000 voters in Michigan specifically who need to hear an update on the Gaza policy and who haven't heard it yet. So we're going to continue pushing today. We need to hear back today. My phone is not on Do Not Disturb. I need to hear from the Democratic Party leadership today. Will there be a Palestinian American speaker featured from this main stage? Is there room in our party to continue discussing Palestinian human rights? I sure hope there is. Members of the press, I invite you to join me for an update. I don't know where the day will take us, but at 6 p.m., uncommitted delegates will be at the United Center right there outside of Section 102. We'll give you an update then. We'll see if we've heard from Democratic Party leadership then or not. I hope that we have, and I hope that our government updates its policy to stop sending bombs to kill babies and their elders and their loved ones. Thank you. It's my honor now to introduce fellow uncommitted delegate Jeremiah Ellison.
Thank you. My name is Jeremiah Ellison. I'm uncommitted delegate from the state of Minnesota, and I am a Minneapolis City Council member as well. Our goal here, our hope here, is to be able to walk out of this convention excited to door knock, phone bank, and defeat Donald Trump in November. Right? We're all people who have been a part of this party for a long time. Some of us are elected officials within this party, but we cannot do that at the expense of lives in Gaza. We can't participate in all of the excitement that we've seen from from Harris delegates at the expense of children, of innocent lives being taken in Gaza. Our strategy is to go to the floor and to build solidarity with delegates who are not uncommitted. They're Harris delegates, and we've had a lot of success with that. We've been received well in talking to Harris delegates, and they've been signing the petition to demand a ceasefire. And what that tells me is it's a reiteration of what Abbas said. This is not an unpopular position. There might be some folks in the party leadership who are afraid to have this conversation, but members of the party are not afraid to have this conversation. The rank and file members of the DNC are not afraid to have this conversation, and they're not afraid to advocate on behalf and stand in solidarity with us to fight for a ceasefire and to fight for an arms embargo. And so we're asking for party leadership, we're asking for Kamala Harris, we're asking for Tim Walz to get up to speed, to join us in this call, to join us in saving lives. to engage in life-affirming policy. And I just want to say, I can't really put it much better than the boss said. He's covered it. But we know and we agree with the fact that there should be speakers, family members of hostages who should speak. But if they're going to have that stage, then we need to hold Palestinian lives on equal footing. We need to have a Palestinian voice up on that stage. So far, we haven't gotten that commitment, and we are calling on the party to remedy that, to give that commitment, to invite someone on that stage who can speak to both their values as a party member and the need for the party to adopt life-affirming policy, life-saving policy in Gaza. And so I'll stop there and keep it short and invite some of my fellow delegates to address you as well.
Good morning. My name is June Rose, and I'm an uncommitted delegate from the state of Rhode Island. Like all of my fellow delegates, I'm here to represent my values of freedom and justice and equality, core values of the Democratic Party. Our ask is that our party applies those same values that we do to issues here at home, to the war in Gaza. When President Biden was the nominee, I was feeling hopeless, both about our ability to defeat Donald Trump and that our policies on the war in Gaza would remain the same. When Vice President Harris became the nominee, I felt hopeful. She has taken a more empathetic tone to the suffering of the Palestinian people. In the wake of a mass shooting or a school shooting, which there are far too many in this country, it's Democrats who are first to say thoughts and prayers are not enough. That's our message to Vice President Harris. Thoughts and prayers are not enough. We need meaningful policy change. We need an immediate and permanent ceasefire and an arms embargo, which means not one more bomb will be provided from the United States to kill children and families in Gaza, where over 16,000 Palestinian children have been unnecessarily murdered. For 2/3 of my life, I believed that as a Jew, the occupation of Palestine was necessary to protect my safety. I grew up an Orthodox Jew, and for 2/3 of my life, I believed that millions of Palestinians needed to be kept in a cage in Gaza and under military occupation in the West Bank to prevent the annihilation of my people. And then I went to Palestine. I met the people in markets in Hebron, in living rooms in Ramallah. I went to Nablus. I went to Bethlehem. I saw the humanity on the other side of the apartheid wall. And I realized in those moments that not one child needed to die in order to keep me safe. I realized that Palestine needs our voices, that I have enough tears to cry for two people, that we cannot all be free until Palestine is free. It was hearing those voices that changed my perspective. And I believe that America deserves that same opportunity. That's why I want to see a Palestinian American speak from the DNC main stage. Because when we see the suffering in Palestine, I believe our minds and our hearts will change. I believe we're an empathetic people. I don't think that there are Americans who want to see children die. Why are we shielded from that pain? I hope the DNC will let us see it. One of those people who has already opened so many eyes to the reality on the ground is a personal hero of mine, and our next speaker, Dr. Tanya Haj-Hassan.
Gaza bearing witness. And the reason that's important is particularly in situations like this where genocidal violence is at stake, our witness becomes important if we want to protect and preserve human life. We've been trained to protect and preserve human life, but that becomes impossible amidst a military regime that's targeting civilian human life and everything that's needed to sustain it. We're not politicians. This is not my comfort zone. I frankly don't want to be here. I wish I could go back to the ICU where I feel most at ease, but I don't know how else to save lives at this point. And for the past 10 months, we have witnessed civilian massacre after civilian massacre. The Nuseirat massacre, the Flower massacre, massacres of humanitarian aid distribution sites, massacres of residential buildings, massacres of so many schools that we've lost count, where internally displaced people who have been forcibly transferred so many times have finally tried to seek safety. There is no safe place. For the last 10 months, we have witnessed as healthcare workers, humanitarian workers, and journalists have been killed at unprecedented rates and numbers in our lifetimes. This is unprecedented. We have witnessed as over 17,000 children have lost one or both parents. We have witnessed children have their limbs amputated at record rates. I'm here with one of my other medical colleagues, an emergency medicine doctor. I'm a pediatric intensive care doctor. And we can both bear witness to the fact that children are a massive proportion of the civilians arriving into the emergency department. There are so many children that arrive into the emergency department wounded and having lost their entire family in the same attack that a term has been coined to describe them. It was coined in October. This is 10 months later, Wounded Child No Surviving Family, or WCNSF. But there's also WMSNSF, Wounded Mother No Surviving Family, Wounded WFNSF, Wounded Father No Surviving Family. I remember in one single night, 2 fathers walked around the emergency department screaming out the names of their children, hoping that one of the children that I was resuscitating was theirs, which meant that their child was retrieved alive from the rubble. I had bad news for both of them. None of those children were theirs. The children who are fortunate enough to survive and be discharged from the hospital are discharged into a Russian roulette of all the ways architectured by this military assault that there's a good chance, probability will kill them. Another bombing, dehydration, starvation, disease. Epidemics are rampant in Gaza, including a resurgence of polio. For the past 10 months, my colleagues in Gaza, physicians, surgeons, nurses, pharmacists, have worked day and night, have fled 4, 5, 6 times from their homes. I spoke with one of my colleagues this morning, and she said, I don't know where else to go. We have fled so many times, I don't know where to take my family. She has a female-led household, and she says, there is nowhere safe for us to go. We are on the line of the latest safe zone. There is nowhere else for us to go. I asked her what message she wanted me to deliver today, and she said, America can decide to stop this in a second, and they know it. But for the past 10 months, we have provided, as a country, unconditional, ongoing military support to a military strategy, if you want to call it that is at odds with documented realities on the ground, the realities witnessed by me and every American physician and surgeon I know who has been to Gaza, by humanitarian and human rights organizations globally and internationally, and by the findings of the International Court of Justice of plausible genocide. This is not sustainable. As one of my colleagues in Gaza told me, it's a hypocritical world that cares about people based on their nationality and not based on their humanity. And I've seen that hypocrisy, and I really, really, really hope that our current administration recognizes it and decides to act in line with the values of human rights and justice that we claim to uphold. Thank you.
There's been a request for speakers to speak a little louder.
Good morning.
increasingly desperate. Israel is not allowing humanitarian aid, even in insufficient amounts, to be allowed into Gaza. When I went into Gaza most recently through the Kerem Salim crossing, I was allowed one bag. The desperate situation of medical personnel and equipment and shortages and supplies is such that one bag is not even a drop in the bucket compared to what is needed. It is increasingly concerning to me as well the injury patterns that I have been witness to. Physicians are often the best advocates for their patients because they see them in times of extreme need. And because they are the witnesses, they become the best advocates. We are also, as Dr. Tanya Hassan mentioned, some of the only witnesses because, as you all are well aware, Israel is not allowing foreign journalists in. As a witness to the Israeli crimes that are continuing to be perpetrated on the Palestinian people, I feel obligated to share some of those. I've documented extensively the crimes perpetuated in particular against children. In the space of several hours in one shift at Nassif Hospital, I saw a 19-month-old who had been shot in the leg by a quadcopter, which is an armed drone. Single in and out shot to the leg while she was playing outside of her tent. There is no reason Israel needs to shoot a 19-month-old that is playing outside of her tent. Within several hours, we also received the body of a 12-year-old boy who had been shot in the chest, in and out wound, left side, dead on arrival. He was also sitting outside of his family's tent in the so-called humanitarian corridor. I cannot emphasize this enough. This is an emergency. This is the emergency of our time. As an American, I am fed up with this administration's dilly-dallying around the issue. I am fed up with empty words, words that ring hollow, promises that are never kept. We have been told repeatedly over the last 10 months that if we engage with this administration, we will see positive results. We will see a change in policy and direction, and we have not yet seen that. That is why the Uncommitted Movement has gained traction. That is why American voters are saying that they are not going to vote for this administration. Rightly so. It is the responsibility of our political class to listen to the voices of their constituents. It is the responsibility of the political class, the political elite, the Democrats, the Republicans, anyone in power, to listen to the witnesses of these crimes. As a witness of this crime against humanity, the crime against humanity, I hope and pray that my testimony and the testimony of my colleagues reaches this administration so that they are finally empowered to demonstrate leadership around this and secure an arms embargo. It is the first and best option to save lives. If we are interested in saving lives, civilian lives, Palestinian lives, then an arms embargo is non-negotiable.
Good morning. My name is Jackson Potter. I'm Vice President of the Chicago Teachers Union, Jewish labor leader, and also a high school history teacher. And I'm here today to reflect positions our members have overwhelmingly taken, demanding a ceasefire, no more weapons to Israel, and calling for human rights to be upheld. So in this moment, public education is going to take a hit, and cuts are on the horizon as the historic COVID relief funds come to an end September 30th. And we're here in Chicago asking for the 80% plus schools that don't have a librarian to ensure we have libraries and librarians. We cannot do that if simultaneously we're sending billions of dollars to bomb children and families indiscriminately in Gaza. We are also asking for the 20,000 homeless students in Chicago to be given homes that are affordable. You cannot do that if billions of dollars are going to Gaza to destroy the homes of countless children and families. We are also asking for all children in this city to have access to dual language programs, to have all that they need if they have disabilities, to have everything their hearts desire for arts and music. We can't do that if they're bombing all the schools and universities with our taxpayer funds in Gaza. We are also asking for schools that every child deserves. We can't do that when all of these resources have created the largest group of pediatric amputees in the world's history in Gaza. So stand before you today asking the Democratic Party to amplify a domestic agenda that lifts up human needs and a foreign policy agenda that respects human rights. I'd like to bring up one of our heroes in the movement, Congresswoman Cori Bush.
As I was standing here just listening, the same thing that has gone through my mind over the last 10 months kept bubbling back up. And that question is, how much hurt moves us into action? How do we quantify that hurt? And then how much hurt will push us to change course? What does that look like? And so as I stand here today alongside my movement family and alongside colleagues and those that are in this work, our families are doing the work for justice and peace and safety and dignity for all people, and particularly our Palestinian brothers and sisters. We demand, of course, not another bomb, but we demand a permanent ceasefire, and we demand it now. We demand an end to bloodshed and the bombing that has already taken over 40,000 lives, and we understand that that number probably isn't accurate. On being the party of human rights, the party for justice, the party for democracy, the party for doing better and, being better. Well, as a Democrat, I believe this to be true, at least because I know who I am, and I know who the Democrats are that I rock with, and especially when a fascist cult is the alternative. But so when it comes to defending Palestinian lives and ending the ongoing genocide in Gaza, the Democratic Party needs to uphold those same values. So over 40,000, we know, men, women, and children that have been killed by weapons that we, the United States, have manufactured and paid for. Millions of people starving and displaced while facing the continued dropping of bombs that the United States has paid for, and they question us about why we stand and why we keep talking and marching and crying and pushing and demanding, and the bombs keep dropping and they're not listening, and they question us. They question our motives. As a nation where we invest our money, it is representative of our priorities. And as a pastor, I believe that where you put your money is where your treasure is. And as this nation is under Democratic leadership, I believe alongside the majority of Democrats across this country that the dropping of bombs and the killing of children is not reflective of the values and the principles that Democrats across this country came to Chicago to protect or claim to protect. All week there have been panels and events and speeches where the main topic of discussion is how Democrats are standing up to the threat of far-right extremism and that's billowing across this country. From Project 2025 to election interference to the former white supremacist in chief himself, Donald Trump. Democrats are committed We are committed to fighting that right-wing, authoritarian, tyrannical, fascist, violent influence. But this is the thing. We can't run against the far-right Trump emboldened influences in our government and at the same time run towards far-right Netanyahu emboldened influences in Israel. As a congresswoman and as an activist and as a Democrat, I'm asking our party to make it make sense. Our dedication to fighting fascism, hate, and violence, it must be consistent, no matter if it's at home or abroad, no matter a person's race, faith, background, or their donors. By aligning ourselves with far-right leaders like Netanyahu, we compromise our own credibility and our commitment to the principles that we claim and we hold dear. We risk depressing the cautious optimism and the hope of the people we need to show up in November so that we can prevent more death and more destruction in America and in Gaza. Democrats, we stand in a pivotal moment in our nation's trajectory, a moment that offers an opportunity to do better and be better. I am here today not in opposition to the party. We are the party. No amount of othering us can deny that truth. Our cause should be seen as helpful and not harmful. Our cause should be seen as trying to balance the scales of justice, to push the needle towards peace, to pivot from violence and towards a ceasefire. Democrats have an opportunity to choose a path of peace and compassion and justice. We need the permanent ceasefire now. We need the stages of the DNC to reflect the fullness of our party, inclusive of Palestinian Americans who are grieving and mourning and demanding better of their leaders, which they should. And more than anything, we need an arms embargo now, and we need that commitment and that real commitment to policies that will end this genocide. And it's the morally right thing to do. The pro-genocide lobby spent millions to buy my seat in an attempt to silence my voice. It ain't work. But I will never, never, never stop speaking up for what's right. I will never stop standing up for the dignity and safety of all people. You can throw everything you have at trying to tear down this movement. But I've got news for those genocidal naysayers. You won't stop us. We've been hit, knocked down, broken before, and we keep coming back. We will keep pushing for a better America because we know it's possible, because we're here. We will keep pushing for free Palestine, for equal rights, for safety. And let us together move forward with courage and conviction in our resolve and an end to this tragic violence and to build this better future. And so hear our voices. Listen to the people, the majority of the people. And lastly, I ask again, how much hurt does it take to move?
Now it's my honor to introduce Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, Minnesota's 5th.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to join my siblings in the movement for justice, for humanity, as the Congresswoman from the 5th Congressional District of Minnesota, who had the highest percentage of uncommitted voters to the tune of 32%. In our country, we tell people to utilize their vote as their voice. And I am proud of my constituents who've utilized their voice to call for a change in our foreign policy, to call for an understanding and uplifting of the humanity of Palestinians. It's been unconscionable for me in the last 10 months to witness my colleagues in this administration refusing to recognize the genocidal war that is taking place in Gaza, to not see the mothers who have lost countless children, the babies whose dead bodies are being dug out, to not understand that working tirelessly for a ceasefire is really not a thing, and they should be ashamed of themselves for saying such thing. Because we supply these weapons. So if you really wanted a ceasefire, you just stop sending the weapons.
That's
It
right.
is that simple.
That's
Right.
So for me, it is clear. If we truly saw Palestinians as equal human beings to Israelis, we would feel as equal of a pain as we felt on October 7th in the last 10 months, where the tragedy of seeing maybe 40,000 people, if not more, some people are saying it's over 100,000. And it is financed by our government, with our tax dollars, with impunity on the national and international stage. Now ask yourselves, how does our Secretary of State travel 11 times begging for an end to a situation that we truly have continued to provide the bombs and the weapons that are creating that situation? How do we allow, where is our patriotism, where is our dignity? How do we allow our Secretary of State to go into Israel, say we are close to securing a ceasefire, now for the 11th time, to leave for Egypt, only for Bibi Netanyahu to have a press conference right after him and say, we are not taking a deal that ends this war? How are we not ashamed that that is the humiliation that our administration's representatives are faced with? It is not only the hypocrisy of saying we are a country that cares about human rights. It is not just the hypocrisy of saying we care about the rule of law. It is not just the hypocrisy of saying we respect international law. But it's also the humiliation. We are the most powerful nation, supplying billions of dollars to a country that is waging genocide against people who have been occupied, who have faced apartheid, who have been displaced. So my gratitude goes to the incredible leaders who have stood up to cast their ballot, to make their voices heard as uncommitted voters. My admiration also goes to my colleague and sister, Cori Bush, who put everything on the line for our collective humanity, for peace, for justice, for us mothers to see every child's pain as equal when our colleagues are unable to. My admiration also goes to the incredibly courageous Rashida Tlaib, who as a Palestinian herself shows up every single day to beg and ask for people to see her children, her nieces, her nephews, her cousins as equal human beings deserving of protection, of justice, of peace, of sovereignty, of dignity. Our president has the ability using the leverage that he has. And that leverage is to stop the weapons that we are sending them. It was admirable after they recognized that the 2,000-pound bombs were causing devastation and destruction. And they stopped sending those. But every other bomb, every other weapon, every other ammunition does the same thing. It takes a life. And I know this as somebody who survived war as a child. I know the pain, the fear, the desperation, the wondering of why nobody cares and why nobody is willing to protect you. And why are there people who are trying to kill you? So I hear the cries that come through our phones every single day from the children of Gaza, because I was one of them. And I beg and plead with Vice President Harris to not lose our democracy by not changing her policy towards Israel and Gaza. Because the people behind me are not undemocratic. The people behind me are Democrats. They vote Democrat. And like me, they know what it meant for us to have a Trump presidency, where our families lived with fear every single day for 4 years. So no, they are not asking or helping Trump to win. They are asking and want to help for the Democrats to win.
That's right.
And that takes for our candidate to win their votes. And I hope today and tomorrow will serve as a reminder that we are all ready to work every single day until November 5th to secure a win against Donald Trump. But it will take not just all of us to go out and vote. It will take for the top of the ticket to have a policy shift, to invite every single voter that cares about peace and humanity, that cares about the destruction in Gaza ending, that cares about the lives that are being taken every single day. And with that, I introduce Maurice Mitchell, who is with Working Families Party.
So there's going to be an event that starts right behind us here, right at 12:10. We're going to do a part two. There's going to be an event that starts right behind us here, right at 12:10. So we're going to do a part two of this press conference in that field down there. We're going to hear from a couple more speakers here, but then right at 12:07, we will have to pause and move over there, and we'll be available for questions, and we might have to have a couple speakers there. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, boss. Thank you. My name is Maurice Mitchell. I'm the National Director of the Working Families Party. I'm glad to be in community with you all, and honestly, I wish it was under better circumstances. Since October, our position at the Working Families Party on the Israeli government's campaign of collective punishment against the Palestinian people has been clear: cease fire now. Over the past year, millions have raised their voices across the globe demanding a ceasefire. But it's clear that Bibi Netanyahu is not heeding the message, and as of last week, more than 40,000 men, women, and children count among the slaughtered. The Working Families Party has been clear that the White House must use every tool at its disposal to bring this carnage to an end and save as many lives as possible. where the language of diplomacy and negotiation has failed, we want the White House to speak the language of arms embargo. It was President Biden himself who said, and I quote, "Don't tell me what you value, show me your budget, and I'll tell you what and whom you value." So I say, if we value a ceasefire, and if we value human life, it's time for an arms embargo. It's time to stop funding war crimes and ethnic cleansing. It's time for the president, for the vice president, and members of Congress to heed the call of our movement. Not another bomb in our name, not another bullet shipped to Israel to kill Palestinians. And where we've said ceasefire now, we say arms embargo now. We say not another bomb. We say not with our tax dollars. We say not in our name. Thank you. And now I'd like to bring my brother, Cliff Albright, from Black Voters Act.
Good afternoon. So it's no surprise that not just over the past few months, but even going back further, that most black voters, most black community members have shown time after time, not just in polls, but even in our conversations on the street, that most in our community side with the Palestinian struggle. And we have been saying consistently, not just ceasefire now, but we join in the call for not another bomb. And there are reasons for this. There's reasons why you see this in the black community. We know we are in Chicago right now, the site of one of this country's worst race riots. We know what ethnic cleansing looks like, and we know it when we see it in Gaza. We know what can be done with the money, the resources that are being put into supporting these war crimes that are taking place. Just the other day, just the other week, $20 billion. And so as we drive around the streets of Chicago over the past few days, as we've done events in the community, not just at the center, but in the community, at a church, at our businesses, what we see is, and what we hear from folks is, that $20 billion could have been put right here in this community. And so we understand the connection between these struggles. We understand that, just as Dr. King said, that we are tied together, that we are mutually connected, tied together in a single garment of destiny. That was true then, and it remains true to this day. And so again, we say loudly and proudly, not another bomb. And we are calling on the White House to do an embargo, to not send another weapon, to not send another bomb, to not let us see any more images of dead children and mothers, and yes, fathers too. And so that is our call. And so I've talked about what black voters have feel towards this issue, but I have to be honest, black voters are also particularly excited in this moment because there's a potential to make some history. And what we're asking for is that as we stand on this precipice of making this history, that we not repeat some of the worst mistakes of our past history. And part of that is, even in terms of, and there's a lot of asks that we have, and some of them are bigger, some of them are smaller. Here's something that's very simple. 60 years after Fannie Lou Hamer was denied a mic at another Democratic convention, let's not repeat that history. Give our people, give our brothers and sisters, give a Palestinian American, give them the mic to be able to say something from the podium at the convention. That's not a lot to ask. Some things are harder than others, but it's not hard to let folks have their voices heard, to have their humanity respected at the podium. If we value this life and humanitarian causes and peace and justice, then that's not a lot to ask. Thank y'all. And just as Mo said he was bringing up his brother, I'm going to bring up my sister Rua from the great state of Georgia.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm Georgia State Representative Rua Roman. I represent House District 97, and I am here to echo the calls of both Not Another Bomb and ensure that we are represented throughout the convention, including on the stage. For 320 days now, everybody in our country has seen imagery come out of Gaza of people who look like my dad, look like my mom, look like my family, completely torn apart by weapons that we are sending. We are sending these weapons, and in return what we are seeing, everybody is seeing, is torn bodies with shrapnel with our American flag on them. That is not good for our country, for our soul. And we still have so many lives left to save. And that is why we are here today. We are here imploring, please, we understand that there is the threat of Trump on the horizon. If we did not think that threat is serious, we would not be here today. If we did not believe in that threat, we would not be working so hard to bridge the divide between our party and our voters and what they are asking for. That is why we are here today. That is why we continue to say not another bomb. That is why we are making the asks that we are making. It's because we need to do this work through November, and we need to do the right thing and save lives. It is one and the same goal. Anyone who tries to say that those two things are distinct is acting in bad faith. Anyone who tells you, for example, that there is somehow a divide between a family member of a hostage going on that stage and a Palestinian begging for a ceasefire does not realize that the only time we successfully were able to secure the release of hostages, hundreds of them, was during a ceasefire. All of these things are intertwined. Saving lives is intertwined. And the sooner we understand this, the sooner we respond to this, the sooner we can ensure that this divide in our party does not grow ahead of November. And I'll end with this. We have watched this convention for 2 nights now. And every night when a speaker mentioned the word ceasefire, everybody in that crowd was ecstatic. It was some of the loudest cheers that we heard throughout the convention. These are hardcore Democrats, y'all. These are not, people that just happen to be walking by. These are our party members. The base of our party, the most core of it, is saying it's time to end this. And the only way to do it is by applying pressure and ensuring not another bomb. Thank you.
I have an important update that the very kind folks who are going to we will be moving over to that field over there. We hope you'll migrate with us and starting back up.